Number 10, USC versus number 16, Tulane.
Okay, so USC is favored by 1.5. Does that shock you? That shocks me. We've done this before on this podcast. It's like, hold on a second. USC's only favored by 1.5? Doesn't make much sense. Let's talk about this game. What is USC? USC is built on two truths. Maybe not even truths, just like two pillars. The two pillars of USC's success are, number one, Caleb Williams. And that's almost like the only pillar you need because he's that dynamic, okay? When he's healthy and running around, it's a sight to see. There's a reason he won the Heisman Trophy. This guy is dynamic. He's hard to stop. He's such a threat when he breaks the pocket, more so because he's so accurate throwing the ball on the run. Their offense just goes to a totally different gear, even with Jordan Addison not playing. Like we've seen that a couple of times during the course of the year. They were fine, right? They run the ball well, although not with a couple of these offensive linemen that are out. But I'm going to stay with, if Caleb Williams is healthy, like that's a pillar. He's dynamic. And then the other pillar to their game is really playing from the lead. Okay, so when they can do that, what ends up happening is that the opposition becomes one-dimensional offensively. That helps USC out tremendously because they are allergic to tackling. They can't do it. So what do they rely on? They rely on the fact that when they can make you one-dimensional, that's when their pass rush can get a little bit of movement. They can create some pressure on the quarterback, and then they can get turnovers. When you have to play one-dimensional and a little bit wild or out of character, the ball is going to be put in precarious spots, and then that's when they get on that plus side of the turnover margin. That's their MO. Great quarterback, turnover margin. That's how they win. When you take away those two things, they're not great. That's why they're only favored by 1.5 in this game, is because, for me, I've got questions about whether Caleb Williams is even going to be healthy. I know I'm not fast, but I've had like soft tissue, like I've strained a calf before. I've strained a hamstring before. It looked awful in that Pac-12 championship game. That game was not that long ago. I can't fathom turning on the television and being like, oh yeah, Caleb Williams is totally healthy. I just don't believe that that's the case. And if he's not totally healthy, they're a far different team. We saw that in really the back half of that Pac-12 championship game against Utah. They couldn't do anything offensively because he couldn't run around. Do we really think he's totally healthy? And by the way, if he's limping at all, if there's any remnant of that injury, he's out of the game. There's no way I'm going to threaten re-injuring that hamstring, doing some more damage to that hamstring when he's clearly the best player in college football. Like this guy is so good. I can't remember a time in which I felt this good about a guy potentially repeating as the Heisman winner ever. Even with Bryce Young coming back. I know Bryce Young was really, really good, but he was going to share votes with Jahmyr Gibbs as he transferred in. And there was that, like, there's nobody else that's as dynamic as Caleb Williams. He may or may not win the Heisman Trophy again, but he's clearly the most dynamic player and will be again next year. So if there's any hitch in his giddy up, there's no way he's playing in this game. There's no way that he's playing. If I'm Lincoln Riley, I see one limp, I'm like, all right, thanks a lot. Why don't you come put a headset on and you can help me call plays? That's the way I would be thinking. Meanwhile, they're going to be without a couple of their really good offensive linemen. Nealon and Voorhees, they're out. And when they were out in that Pac-12 championship game, their run game diminished demonstrably. 2.07 yards per carry, only 56 yards, no touchdowns. Now, granted, Utah's a top 20 rush defense, but they couldn't run the ball. And without that, they couldn't do much offensively. Then they couldn't play from the lead. And then they couldn't tackle. And it's like, oh, all these like warts on the USC team are becoming much more recognizable because of the fact that Caleb Williams isn't out there to just mask everything with his brilliance. So then you look at Tulane and it's like, hey, Tulane's pretty damn good. They beat UCF. They beat Kansas State in Manhattan. This is a team that Tyjae Spears, their running back, is a really good player. He breaks a lot of tackles, 7 100-yard games, 7 straight 100-yard games in this season. When I watch him, he makes people miss. And a guy that makes people miss going against the USC defense, who's literally allergic to tackling, like, that's a bad matchup. So the fact that, like, I don't know if Caleb Williams is totally healthy. That's why this game is 1.5. And when you view it through that lens, then it makes some sense. Now, the fact that it hasn't just been reported like, hey, he's definitely out, or like, I do think that he's going to play. I think that he's probably healthy, or else we would have heard more about it. If he's not, they'll be in some trouble, but I can't sit here in good conscience and just say like, yeah, I'm going to take Tulane in this game. USC should be better. They should be better next year. Lincoln Riley has said now publicly, this will be the worst talent that he ever has at USC. Better days clearly ahead. And obviously they'll be looking for a playoff berth here in coming years. So USC is favored by 1.5. I'm going to take USC. I'm going to give the 1.5. And I think that the Trojans win the Cotton Bowl.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here. College football on Fox.